then we'll go ahead and get started. So we have this for posterity. We've remembered now twice. Hey everyone, welcome to Virtual Happy Hour. Missed everyone for the last few weeks, took a little break and then a surprise break that really was just waiting for Travis to get back from Cancun. And so, but we are so excited that Kate Perry, who I lovingly call the Fairy Godmother of the Florida Rum Society. She doesn't love the title, but you know, we'll work through it. But it was because of her that I decided to start us down this crazy adventure. So I give her 99% of the credit for sure. She's going to join us and talk about some of our favorite rums. I know Clairin's on tap, but I know that she'll also talk about anything you guys want to chat about. So feel free to shoot us questions, interrupt, whatever. This is our show, and we don't we want to listen, but we also want to learn what we want to learn. So I'll throw it over to Kate.
Cool. Hi guys. Last time we were all together, we got to be together in person, which was wonderful. I really, really loved that time hanging out with y'all in Orlando, drinking delicious things, chatting about rum. That was really wonderful. And I'm so excited. You know, there's like a lot of these rum groups around the country, and I love that the Florida Rum Society is so new and so energetic and so determined to be educationally forward, and that you guys want to learn and that you guys show up and you love tasting and learning about new things. It's very, very cool. I know that y'all had a session with Christelle Harris of Hampden Estate. So I love talking about Hampden Estate, but that was pretty recent. So I thought we might talk about some other stuff. Yeah, Missy. Instead, like Clairin, because Clairin is really exciting. And so first, hi, I'm Kate, Kate Perry. I have the pleasure and the honor of representing a portfolio of spirits called Maison and Velier. Maison and Velier is a split joint company between two sort of monoliths of spirits companies in Europe. Maison du Whiskey is based in France. They have two retail shops in Paris. They have a shop in Singapore and a shop in La Réunion Island off the coast of Madagascar. If you ever get a chance to travel and go visit their shops in Paris or Singapore or La Réunion and go visit some rum distilleries as well, I highly recommend it. They have such this incredible ability to showcase spirits in like this really just beautiful way where they feel like jewels on the shelf. They're all like beautifully backlit and just gorgeous. So they teamed up with the Italian rum forward company Velier, helmed by Luca Gargano. So I work equal parts for Thierry Benatar in the dark blue shirt and Luca Gargano giving the sign in this picture. So the two companies started kind of working more and more closely together, and then in 2017 launched a third joint company aptly named Maison and Velier, who I work for, and we represent all different kinds of really cool spirits. We're very much known for our rum portfolio and kind of the advocacy of true rum or authentic rum or anything like that. But we have a lot of really cool spirits aside, and everything in the portfolio kind of walks this line between the farmers, the distillers, the traditions and cultures, and the raw material, showcasing how important the quality of raw material is. Everything that we do is very tradition, culture, labor forward. So it's really easy to understand the direct connection between the spirit that's in the bottle that we get to enjoy and where it comes from and who it comes from. So from Maison du Whiskey, we have a range of really beautiful cognac. This is all single cask, small farmer. A lot of these guys sometimes it's the first time that they've ever had a bottle with their name on it. Like in the history of rum, the history of cognac is selling bulk spirit to the big four companies who blend it add sugar to it, water it down to 40% and sell it export. Only 2% of cognac produced is actually consumed in France, and like 1.5% of that is actually consumed in cognac. So these are really, really beautiful single casks, kind of the celebration of these smaller producers and smaller farmers. From La Maison de Whiskey, we also have Transcontinental Rumline, which is a really sort of interesting independent bottle line, which is different than a dependent bottle line. But this is an independent bottler, but a very transparent independent bottler. So here they're telling you where the spirit is coming from, how long it was aged in its home. It was shipped across the ocean, aged in our cellar in cognac, and how long it was aged there. So you can trace the value of the spirit and where exactly it's coming from and what's happening to the spirit. So you can see it says 4 + 1 years old, 4 years aged in Jamaica, plus 1 year aged in Europe.
Hey, Kate, for
yeah.
the Transcontinental, I know that I think a lot of the people are familiar with the 4 that I see mostly in the U.S., which are almost not, I don't think any of those. So are those mostly not available in the U.S. or just haven't made it here?
Sorry. So in my portfolio, Hampden Estate, Clairin, and Mulasano Vermouth are always available, consistent products, except for Clairin, where the vintage will change. Everything else is a single release or an offering. So the bottles that you're familiar with in the market were last year's release. These are this year's release. So we'll have 5 coming into the market this year. It's going to be Jamaica, Panama, a tiny amount of Fiji, Australia, Trinidad, and then we'll also have a couple of single casks going to some markets as well. So the single casks are actually going to hit first, which I'm really excited about. And then these I just sent in to be bottled pretty soon. So these will be coming up, but you haven't seen these because they haven't been released yet. I'm really excited about that Australia. You don't see a lot of Australian rum in the market. So I've gotten a lot of feedback about that bottle in particular. But the bottles that were in the market last year, there was a single cask Guyana from the Port Morant still that was a 14-year, all aged in the continental climate in Europe. There was a Jamaica, a Panama, a Fiji, and a Guadeloupe. So this will be the next one. They update the label a little bit more as well. That Trinidad is last year's label, but you can kind of see it's a little bit more, I don't know, stylized. I like it.
I know that John just interviewed, I forget his name, John, so you can jump in and correct me if you want, but
the Australian, yeah, from Bentley, yeah.
From Bentley, right, the Australian,
Awesome.
Yeah. So I heard him on the Rumcast, so I was interested when we were going to see ours.
Yeah, it's really cool. He mentioned that the Transcontinental was going to have that, so very excited for that.
Yeah, it's going to be, yeah, I'm really excited about it too. I think that there's a lot of cool potential coming out of Australia. I haven't gotten to try a lot of it, so I'm excited to kind of see what comes available and what moves forward. There's a lot of sugarcane grown there, man. So it's really exciting.
Sorry, I got you off track.
No, it's great. I love it. So we also have a range of Mezcal, and you can see that this very much goes along lines with sort of the ethos of the company, where the labor of these bottles is front and forward. There's no mistake in who distilled the liquid in that bottle because their face is on the label. And I really love these bottles. They're also pretty limited edition. When they're gone, but this is a project kind of similar to our Clairin project. In Haiti, we started a small company called The Spirit of Haiti. In Oaxaca, we started a small company called Palenqueros. So Palenqueros is the name of this range to showcase the work of 7 different mezcaleros or palenqueros. So all of their mezcal is from their small estates, kind of co-owned by this co-op. So they're all partners in the company with us, managed by a family out of Oaxaca to share the really special juice that these guys are all producing. It was a pretty small amount that was released in the US. I don't really have much left. So if you see it out in the market, definitely pick it up. It's really delicious. That the dark blue one on the far right there is my personal favorite, that Onofre Ortiz. Oh, it's so delicious. I've never tasted mezcal like that before, so it's really exciting. I tasted it and I told someone I loved it, and somebody said, yeah, Kate, it has this like Jamaican funk thing to it. Of course you love it. And I was like, well, I'm predictable if nothing else.
Well, now you've sold me on one because, like you, I love the Jamaican.
Yeah, it's so delicious. We also have this really beautiful range of vermouth that we work with. This is Mulasano. And don't tell my rum friends, but I think I probably drink this more than anything else in my portfolio. This Bianco in particular is just absolutely stunning. And if you guys love to make rum drinks, I know my Missy and Joe friends over there love to mix with rum. Try like classic cocktails with this Mulasano Bianco is absolutely stunning. I love it in a Presidente, and you know, I also like to have more than one drink. Sometimes I love reversing that spec and using Mulasano as a base spirit, and then a really potent, full flavored, like Jamaican rum or Clairin as the rum. And it's absolutely beautiful. So this is a range of vermouth produced by a little distillery up in Piedmont called Bordiga. I don't know if anyone has seen Bordiga around, but they make really beautiful gins, a lot of sort of aromatic bitters and aperitivos and Barolo Canatos. They also have Bordiga Vermouth, which is absolutely stunning. And they've been around since 1888. So if you go back in time, they would have been producing vermouth recipes for all of these little apothecaries and cafes that were popping up along the trade route between Genoa, being the big port city, and Paris, being the big city of commerce. So all of these little shops were popping up around this trade route to service the traders who are going back and forth between the port and the major city. Mulasano was one of those cafes. So Bordiga has been producing this recipe of vermouth for over 200 years. Mulasano is kind of the cafe that made it big. They moved to the major city of Turin. They're still there. They became sort of the hub for like the cool beatnik poet musicians. It became a very famous cafe. And this was really like the white whale of vermouth, because if you wanted to drink this vermouth, you had to go to Cafe Mulasano to drink it. So it became kind of no longer viable to produce a range of vermouth just for one account, even if it had been produced for almost 200 years. And so they said, rather than losing this recipe to history, why don't we open up to global, to share it globally? So they partnered with our company. So now we're the distributors of Mulasano Vermouth. Absolutely stunning stuff, especially that Bianco. It's all very good, but that Bianco just sings. I love it.
I mean, we're supposed to be loving rum, but a lot of people are asking where they can find the Mulasano. You've sold everyone on it. Do you know where in Florida?
I know it's available in Florida. Our distributor in Florida is Progress. Definitely, you know, the best thing, I say this all the time, I feel like a broken record sometimes, but if there's something, you know, from our portfolio or from anything in the world that you want to get your hands on, go ask for it. It can be really difficult for small brands to get the shelf space for spirits when there doesn't seem to be a demand for it. So if whoever is behind the desk at your favorite local retailer, or whoever the buyer is, you know, Brock knows this. If you've never heard of something, you're probably not going to bring it on. If you have a couple people come in and ask for it, typically, like, you have a better chance of seeing it and being able to get access to it.
And Brock just said that if we want, he can order a few, and he'll get some in his store.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to try it now. So.
Brand, like,
Me too.
you know, go in and ask for it. Like I'm here in Washington State, where our taxes are just astronomical, and it's so challenging for the local community here to buy local, because it's like almost like 3 times the prices of what you pay just to buy something off of the store. So I totally get that people also like to buy stuff off of websites and have it brought in if that's possible. But I always tell my friends, for every bottle that you go and buy off of a website, walk into a local store and request that bottle, because that's the only way that it's going to affect any change. It's really hard to supply if there is no perceived demand. So whatever you're looking for, just, go ask for it. I have friends who pop into retail shops and just ask for bottles when they're walking by, just to try to get it more out there. You hear something once, and chances are you maybe going to remember it. And when someone comes in and says, "Hey, do you want to taste this really cool vermouth?" You can say, "Oh, I've heard of that. I heard someone asking about it. Yeah, let's try it." So it's so appreciated for small brands like me and a lot of the rum, especially rum. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you guys know that the perception of rum in the world is this really sticky, sweet, spiced thing that you have to chug down with Coke, or that you drink in a rum drink that's some shade of orange on a beach and it's filled with fruit juice. The world of sipping rum, or rums of distilleries, is really pretty new to the US. I've been into rum since 2012 here, and even in the last 5 years, what's become available in the US market is absolutely shocking. So there has been a huge movement and a lot of change, but a lot of times, it's hard to keep up with that. So the perception of what rum is, and the rum that we all know and love in this group, can be really different. So I talk to a lot of people where they say, "Oh, rum, there's no demand for rum. We sell Captain Morgan and Bacardi. Nothing wrong with those, drink what you like." But it's very, very different than the rums that, we're talking about and that we love to drink. So sorry, end of soapbox, but ask for it.
It's a good, no, stay on that. That's the soap. That's why we're all here, right? Is because of that soapbox. There's so much more to it than Captain Morgan and Bacardi. Once again, some
Yeah,
people like them, great, but there's more out there, so experience it.
Totally. So Habitation Velier, I hope that a few of you have heard of this. I see it's Brock's background now. Awesome. This is a dependent range of rum. So independent bottlers, I don't know if you guys know how independent bottling works or bulk rum works, but a lot of distilleries ship bulk liquid off of the island, mostly over to a company in Europe called E&A Shear. They have big warehouses in Liverpool called Main Rum. You can go to their website. I actually went to their website kind of recently and was really surprised about how much information is on there. If you wanted to start a rum brand tomorrow, it's pretty easy to do so. If you have the funding for it, you can buy pretty small amounts of liquid and start your own independent bottler line. But this is bulk rum, and this really, a lot of the distilleries historically, this is their bread and butter. They're able to do sort of their smaller niche products because they have a consistent line of income coming in through bulk rum. So nothing wrong with it at all, but it's definitely a different model than what this is, where this is a partnership. So this is co-created between Velier and distilleries themselves to showcase something that's really special about the distillery. So this is a range of rum that's 100% batch distilled, so not continuous column, but distilled on pot stills or batch stills to showcase kind of how special the distillery is. What we had in the market last year, we had 7 expressions because it was kind of the bottles that Luca had known and thought ahead that he wanted to bottle in 750 for when we launch in the US someday. And it was the culmination of all of those bottles. So they were kind of all over the board, bottled in 2015, 16, 18. So this will be the new range that will hit the market this year, hopefully in the late summer, early fall. So the Savannah already came and went. I know Missy was a big fan of that. Super wild, crazy, funky stuff. Awesome. And then we'll have 2 more unaged rums coming, the Privateer and the Hampton Estate LROK. And then we'll also have 3 aged expressions coming to the market from Worthy Park, Hamden, and Privateer. Is Maggie still on here?
She is. I already told. So the questions have been coming because people want to hear about the privateer, I'm sure, right? So,
I know.
so I told Maggie she better be on deck because people want to hear about it anyways.
Maggie, if you want to say something, jump on in here.
Yeah, I saw that. Let me scroll back up. I saw Joe and Missy. Hi. I saw they asked about the white privateer. It's double pot stilled, so it's got like a lot of fruitiness to it and texture, and it's very aromatic and powerful. Yeah, so, and we have all the geeky details on the aged one, every cask that went into it, all the information on each cask, everything about that. That'll be coming out with the release as well. So of course we're like wildly honored to be, you know, working with Velier. Yeah, it's just really, it touches my heart to see us up there with so many distilleries I just look up to so much. So Kate came to visit us a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it feels like 10 years ago, Maggie.
Feels like 20 years ago in another world. Yeah, you've been out to visit us a few times, which I love. But yeah, we met up with Luca and he tasted some samples and was really like, oh, I really like this style. Let's do something like this. And yeah, we're really proud of it and very excited. So I'm really thrilled that that's coming to the States. Although poor Kate and I, half our conversations are online with people who are looking for it, but it will be out late summer, early fall, which will be perfect. So
In due course.
In due course, Richard says. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know. I'm already getting yelled at that people can't find it, and I'm like, it's not available yet. Like,
I feel like, Kate, here's the thing, right? I feel like you warned people about the Savannah, that if they wanted it, they better seek it out because it was going to go fast, and it did. And I actually bought 2 bottles and was kind enough to give one of mine to someone that was really looking for it. So I feel like, right, the same thing. If you want it, we'll do our best to find out who has it. I know Brock will definitely get some. We'll see if we can get some in Orlando and some of the other places. But yeah, you got to grab it while you can.
How much is going to be available?
That totally depends. I don't have all of the totals yet, but they're limited releases. You know, here's what we have. When it's gone, and then next year we'll have equally as cool special stuff released. So this is an annual small release.
So do you know how many barrels totally went into the production?
Of the privateer?
Yeah.
5.
5. Okay, cool. So that's probably
Great.
1,200
7?
bottles or so?
I think it might have been 7 because the Pere Dissetto had 5.
Yeah.
I think it's 7 barrels. So,
okay, so like maybe 1,700 bottles or so?
Oh no, like 1,400 tops.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot, but not that many.
Right, it is a lot. And some of it'll go to Europe, and some of it comes here.
Global.
Yeah, so Kate, I'm not sure. I know I could like pop into the distillery and count the cases, but I'm not exactly sure what the allocation is going to each location. Our logistics guy does that.
Yeah.
Missy says that the Florida Rum Society wants them all. I'm just reading the comments. I don't know.
But that would make other people very mad at me. Yeah, I tend not to like look at numbers or anything until it's in our warehouse and see it and I believe it. Because otherwise I get my hopes up. You know, things happen. The world is, as we all know, very upside down right now. So if it's later than early or late summer, I'm sorry, the world is upside down if it's a different amount. So I see it when I believe it. And then I try to spread it around as fairly and evenly as I can because I know so many people are so excited. I love how many people in Massachusetts are reaching out to me about this bottling too. The groundswell of support in Maggie's local market is just really, really incredible, really heartwarming. People I've never heard of are DMing me saying, hey, like, I know that Velier is not in Massachusetts and this bottling is coming out and I have to have it. I love Privateer. So, you know, Maggie and her team and what they're doing are so well loved and so well respected that I'm basically launching in Massachusetts so everyone can have access on their home field too, because it's so important. So I know that, you know, Maggie and I basically just cry on the phone with each other that how meaningful this bottling is. I think it's really incredible that this is the first time that Velier has ever bottled a North American rum under this range, and this is the first time that Privateer has ever had a bottling outside of their normal shaped bottle. So it's a world premiere on both sides, and it's a really cool beginning of what I hope is a very long and fruitful relationship, sharing amazing spirits of the world.
Hard, same. I never thought we'd ever do a bottling with anyone else, ever. So I'm really, really happy. And then Kate, just so you know, I dropped in the chat like the total breakdown of the Velier aged Privateer, like each barrel, the age, how it was made, everything. So they all have the data now.
Cool, thank you. Also, I don't have the chat up, so just
that's what I figured.
The question. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm managing it for you, Kate. No worries.
Okay,
there was one other question before we moved away from Privateer. The Paradisetto. What was the Paradisetto releases? I might have missed that.
So,
sorry, Kate.
Yeah, no problem. Paradisetto was the name of Velier's office in Genoa for over 30 years. They were based in this really beautiful office called Villa Paradisetto. This year, Velier is moving offices. So that range was a release kind of to mark a new chapter in the story of Velier, of them leaving Villa Paradisetto and moving to their new office. So it was a really kind of special small bottling that was a tribute to the last 30 years as they transition into the future of the company. Luca bought this really incredible, I call it a castle because it looks like a castle, but it's this incredible old building that he's fully restored. It has, I believe, 4 acres. It has some of the last indigenous Mediterranean forest on the property of the region. Every office is going to have their own little biodynamic garden where they can grow their own food. It's a really just absolutely stunning, incredible place. I haven't seen it finished yet. I've only gotten to walk through it as it's been under construction, but it looks out over the Genoan Sea. It's just such an incredible project, and hopefully it'll also be a place that people can go and visit. You can go to Paris and visit the retail shops of La Maison de Whiskey. Velier is an office, so unless you're kind of a partner of the company or a colleague, you can't really go to Velier, but this will be more of a place to welcome people, to have events, more of a dynamic space. So it's really exciting about the future. And then Villa Paradisetto was just a way to commemorate the past for the office. So Privateer was selected to be in the range of Villa Paradisetto to sort of honor the past of the company, which is so special. I'm going to tear up and cry again. I think that it was just really just so special that he wanted to bottle some of Maggie's liquid under that range, but only available in Europe. Sorry guys, tiny amount. So that was the other stuff that it just hits, and maybe you guys have seen it around the interwebs, but it won't be coming to the US. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts, feelings?
No, I think we're caught up. Thank you.
Hampton Estate, which you guys hopefully know and hopefully got to spend some time with my dear friend Christelle Harris, who's the manager of Hampton Estate. Her family bought the distillery back in 2009, and what they did was really incredible, which was absolutely nothing. It would have been so easy for the family to have seen what looked like a fairly dilapidated distillery and have, bulldozed it down and put up something modern. But me as a lover of Hampton and of rum. I'm so thankful to them that they didn't do that, that instead they recognized how special this distillery was. And instead they didn't change anything. They instead kept up these really, really old traditions of this distillery and decided that it was time for the distillery to start releasing their own bottles. Hampden has only been sold to the bulk rum market for 267 years now. And so this is the first time since 2010 that they put down casks at the distillery. In 2009, they released Rum Fire, which is the first ever brand of Hampden Estate created by Hampden Estate. This is the first ever aged rum created by Hampden Estate in the history of Hampden Estate. So really like just a complete game changer for the world of rum to have this mythical distillery that's been producing some of the most interesting, dynamic, sought after spirit in the world for a very long time, finally have their name on their bottle that they produce themselves. So I wake up feeling completely honored every day that I get to work with Hampden Estate. Also, it tastes really good, right? We can wax poetic about stories and producers and raw material and everything that goes into creating the bottle. But at the end of the day, when you put it in your mouth, it should be an enjoyable experience. It should be a pleasure. So the fact that it's also incredibly pleasurable to drink is icing on the cake. So we have the 46%, as it looks like now, going in, it'll say aged 8 years on the label, like in this slide there. We have the overproof, 60%, and then this fall we'll have the Great House rum launching in the market. I don't say this lightly. I mean, you guys know me, you guys know that I drink a lot of rum. Hampden Estate Great House rum might be my favorite rum in the world. It's
teasing us.
It's so iconic. I had some at Rumfest. Did anybody get to try it with me? Man, it's just, I know Maggie has a bottle because she mentioned on one of her chats that she hadn't tasted it. And Christelle and I started like texting each other like, can you put a bottle in the mail for Maggie? Oh no, I already did it. Sorry, I'm away. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely had it. It was delicious.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. So the 8-year and the overproof will be consistent releases. The Great House is going to change year to year. So that is a blend of a different blend of marks or a different recipe of the rum than these. And that's kind of their playground to showcase something unique. So it'll be much, much smaller release and it'll change every year. So it'll say, 2020 release, 2021 release. So that's really exciting. The other really cool new thing that's coming in August is called Providence. This is the newest distillery in the Caribbean. The picture is behind it. It's a project between Velier and between Le Maison and Velier and the Linguet family. The Linguet family are the original Barbancourt bloodline. After 3 generations now, I believe, they're coming back to distilling. So there are partners in Haiti that we own the spirit of Haiti with. So our Clairin, so they are in charge to work with the producers to collect the spirit. They bottle it, they label it, they manage all of the operations, getting Clairin off of the island and into our glasses, so thank you. And then this is a brand new project that we just started with them to open a distillery. So it's called Distillery de Port-au-Prince. The brand is called Providence. And it's coming really, really soon. So Providence, the goal or the brand is to be an aged rum. So it's going to be more of a, more along the lines of like Barbancourt than Clairin, but it's going to take time for it to age. So we wanted to celebrate that these are the first drops coming off of the still. So this is the first release of the distillery, Providence first drops, but in the future, this brand will be an aged spirit, which is super, super exciting. That's Luca at the bottom of his pot still, just looking so happy, like paradise on earth. So this will be coming August, if all goes well in the world. knock on wood, in due course. It's set to arrive in August, but you know, things can go upside down quickly. So if it doesn't, my apologies, but we will get it to you as soon as possible.
Did
It's
you?
really,
What was the age statement? Did you say?
this is unaged.
Oh, okay. But then
Yeah.
they're gonna do some age stuff.
Off of the still, so
Got
that
it.
we can taste it and celebrate it. But the future of the range will be primarily an aged product. So super cool. I love the label on this one. And when I was at the office last, Luca showed me the label and I said, Luca, this is one of my favorite labels that you've done. And he said, of course it is, because I took this label and I did everything wrong. There's like 4 kinds of typeface. There's 3 colors, none of them match. Like it's all kind of all over the place, but you know, you're a renegade. So of course you like this one because it doesn't make any sense. I was like, yes, I love it. And then last but not least, we represent Clairin, which is what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, but this is so much fun. I hope you have time. If you guys have to jump off, I know that it's being recorded, so don't feel bad at all. I'll just sit here and wax poetic about Clairin as long as you'll let me, because
I think we've stuck to the hour once, so
okay,
we're
good.
good. We're
Great.
good.
I know when we were all together in person, we got to just like hang out as long as they would let us.
That's right, exactly.
So Clairin is the other thing. I've been in South Africa and then I've been in Washington, so I haven't had access to any of the bottles, but I just got a shipment. So this is the first time I've had bottles in my hand in like 3 months, which I'm very excited about. I'm really looking forward to enjoying to making some cocktails at some point, which will be very cool. But Clairin, has everyone had the chance to try Clairin, to put Clairin to your mouth, to taste it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, awesome.
Love it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so unique and it's so fun to show other people.
Yeah.
It blows some people away.
Yeah, totally. I love that sort of the perception of white rum or clear rum is this sort of like very light bodied, not a whole lot of flavor. And then you put something like Clairin or rum fire or rum agricole or, you know, some of these big flavorful, you know, big rums in a glass, and people are so shocked because it goes so against what people think unaged or white rum is. It's supposed to, you know, be for daiquiris or mojitos. And yeah, this makes one of the best mojitos I've ever had. You know, if you're gonna mix rum with flavor, make it be about the rum. My hope for the cocktail world is that we start focusing on the raw material of the thing. You know, make cocktails that showcase and give the spirit a hug, right? Show them in a sort of interesting light. Don't cover them up with all of these other ingredients, and use real ingredients and real spirits that have personality to them. I could drink, you know, a whole bunch of very light-bodied neutral daiquiris, but at the end of the day, it's about the lime juice and the sugar. It's not about the rum. Make me a drink that tastes of rum. That's what I want. So I'm really excited that more of this sort of full-flavored spirits are coming to the market. And I think that in the instance of Clairin specifically, part of the reason that we've had success with it is because people have really latched onto the world of Mezcal. Mezcal has really opened up our palates to drinking unaged, high proof, high flavor spirit in a glass. Before that, it wasn't really happening. So I think that, you know, people kind of tell me, oh, Clairin is like the Mezcal of rum. And, you know, Mezcal has such an old tradition. It has its own thing going on, and we should respect that. I don't feel like Clairin needs to jump on anyone's coattails to be cool. But I do think that the popularity of Mezcal in the recent last 10 years or so has really opened up our sort of image and our acceptance to try something unaged in a glass. And if you want to mix it, you know, it has such potent big flavors that it's not going to be shy. It's going to let you know that it's there. So yeah, Clairin. I'm glad that you guys have tried it and have the chance to taste it. If you haven't, hopefully, you know, bars will be starting to open up a bit. I know Brock carries a lot of it. They're all quite different from each other, just as, you know, Mezcal is very different depending on the type of agave and the producer and the soil and the area. Clairin acts a lot of the same way. But first, Haiti is beautiful. You guys are in Florida. You're not too far away. It's an adventure to visit there. It's not the easiest place. It's not the Dominican Republic where you can get an all-inclusive resort and a shuttle and be closed off from the culture of the island. That sort of infrastructure isn't set up, lucky us. But go to Haiti when it's safe to do so again. It's a really just stunningly beautiful place. I feel so privileged that I've gotten to spend a little bit of time there. Unfortunately, a lot of what we hear about Haiti in the news is kind of, you know, about the earthquake or the hurricanes. It's really kind of damage driven. And I really hate that, because Haiti is just one of the most special places I've gotten to visit. And I love just to show people that Haiti is one of just this incredible paradise. There's, you know, just incredible amount of biodiversity there. The food is incredible. It's my favorite in the Caribbean. I like to think that this guy's cooler is filled with Clairin. And this is a distillery. In all of the Caribbean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brands of rum that exist, everything from distillery releases to boardroom brands and marketing projects, to third-party blends, to independent bottlers. A lot of bottles that you pick up and you don't understand anything about where the liquid came from. But there's the whole sea of diversity of types of rum. But in the Caribbean, there's only about 50 distilleries that produce all of that market share, from distillery releases all the way up to marketing projects. Outside of Haiti. Haiti is a little bit of a different story, because they're the only Caribbean island to fight against the French colonialists and win their independence. So back to 1804, the Africans that were enslaved and brought to Haiti as the workforce rebelled against the French and won their independence. They were the only Caribbean country to do this. Absolutely incredible. And so they've sort of been set up in a different, really a different scheme than the rest of the Caribbean, where the rest of the Caribbean was colonialized for a lot longer. There were rebellions happening all over the Caribbean at this time, and the French couldn't really say, okay, Haiti, you won your independence, we're gonna respect you, we're gonna trade with you, we're gonna treat you like an independent country. They were never gonna do this, and this also would have inspired all of the other revolutions that were happening around the Caribbean to say, look, it's possible to win. So they kind of swept them under this economic, socio-political carpet in the form of reparations and all this crazy stuff that has really, really put Haiti at a economic disadvantage, to put it lightly, ever since. But in terms of the country and in terms of their biodiversity and in terms of Clairin, this also means that this isolation from the rest of the world caused them to basically skip 2 centuries of chemicals, of fertilizers, of pesticides, of the things that we have really destroyed our soil with. These things never arrived to Haiti. So we like to kind of say that Haiti is so in the past that now they're the future. now they have this incredible treasure of amazing soil, of a place where pineapples still taste like pineapples. Limes are these little citron vert that are the most aromatic, beautiful limes I've ever had. The chicken has so much flavor. They have all of these old varietals that haven't been homogenized. They haven't been changed and GMO'd and selected like the rest of the world. So in a lot of ways, Haiti is just this incredible space that is a celebration of biodiversity. And in terms of the rum, which is why we're all here, this also means that where in the rest of the Caribbean, there's 50 distilleries, in Haiti, there's still over 500. We don't know how many distilleries there are in Haiti. This is one of them. They can be very small, kind of thatched shacks, for lack of a better word, like this. They're called guildives, to kind of bigger, not modern, but a little bit bigger, substantial distilleries, and kind of the whole range in. So with 500 distilleries, I mean, these are 3 of them, 3 of the 500. These 3 all taste very different. All of the 500 taste very different. The diversity of Clairin, distillery to distillery, season to season, sugarcane to sugarcane, is all incredibly different. So with 500 producers, there's 500 different Clairin. And so if you're in Haiti, and guys, go to Haiti, it's amazing when it's safe to do so again. If you're in Haiti and you're in a small village, maybe there's 1 distillery. Fritz Vivall lives in the village of Cavaillon. He's the only distiller in Cavaillon. Everybody knows Fritz Vivall because he produces the Clairin for everybody in this area. If you're in a bigger village, Saint-Michel de Atala is a pretty big village up in the north. There could be, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 distilleries. You have a bigger population, you have more thirst, you need more Clairin. So if you're in Haiti and you want to drink Clairin, typically you will see on the roadsides a blue vat, like the one in this picture, and you know that you can pull over and it's either going to be fuel or Clairin. You have to be a little careful. Or in the town emporium, there'll be a table set up and they'll have jugs of Clairin and often jugs of fuel next to it. So again, you have to be careful to get the right thing. But this is how it's consumed. So you take your plastic water jug, you go to this big blue drum like this, you fill up your plastic water bottle with Clairin and you drink Clairin. And this has been the culture of Clairin drinking for 300 years or so. There's no real culture of mixology in villages that don't have electricity, they don't have refrigerators, so there's no like putting it on the ice. There's not like a tea punch culture like there is in Martinique and Guadeloupe. It's really more drink it out of a plastic water bottle. And so it's kind of been this really cool mythical spirit where maybe you know somebody who went to Haiti and they brought you back this little plastic water bottle of Clairin. I sort of saw it popping up a little bit before I started working with it. I know Jeff Berry has like 1 Clairin recipe on his app and I was so excited to see it. But before this project, if you Googled Clairin, there is nothing that came up. Clairin, the skincare came up and that was it. And so it's a very, very old spirit and it's very, very big category, even if it's super new to us. This is really one of the only places in the Caribbean where you could take a photo like this. In other places, it's typical to plant sugarcane in rows and fields, where then you would probably plant bananas next to it to change the soil for nitrogen, mangoes next to that, and everything is planted in monoculture. This is one of the only places where you can see everything is all mixed up. Sugarcane here grows in polyculture or planted or wild, so it's a really different place. With the rest of the Caribbean, there's 20 or so, maybe 30 varieties of sugarcane that are designed for sugar and rum production. They're big fat canes like this. You get a lot of sugar concentrate and a lot of juice out of it when you squeeze it. Haiti being so in the past that now it's the future, still uses a lot of hybrid sugar cane. So these are the old varieties that first arrived to the Caribbean. You guys know that sugar cane is not indigenous to the Caribbean. It was brought there. And so in Haiti, you have hundreds of different varieties of sugar cane. We don't really know how many. There hasn't been any study done. And sometimes in the local dialect, the same cane might have two different names, or two different canes might have the same name. So I hope that somebody someday does a study to actually figure out what types of cane and growing where. But the cane does grow depending on its environment. Some cane has decided that it does best up in the mountains on the hills. Some cane does best at lower elevations, north to south, east to west. So as you're driving through the country, the sugar cane totally changes as where you're going. So the cane that's up in the north in the village of Saint-Michel de Atalay, where Sejus lives, is different than the sugar cane that grows down in the southern coast. So there's lots of different types of cane. This is the cane called crystalline. It's the cane that grows in Saint-Michel de Atalay that Sejus uses for his Clairin. This is another type of cane. This one here is called canbouche. It's kind of the fattest cane. It's this really beautiful burgundy color. It's very, very sweet. This is the cane that you see the kids eating on the roadsides. It's a very like sweet, juicy cane, canbouche, can for your mouth. But you can see there's lots of different varieties here. The yellow one in the middle is Madame Meuse. There's some kind of twirly, twisty ones, but lots and lots of different kinds. The cane is harvested by hand, and this is really important. The cane cutters are super highly skilled. They know exactly the right place on the cane to make their cut. And when you plant sugar cane, typically it takes about 18 months for it to mature. And when you cut it, it grows like grass, right? Because sugar cane is a grass. So you can harvest it for usually 6-8 years, something like that, if you cut it by hand and leave the root stock. So they know the perfect place on the sugar cane stalk to cut it. They leave it and it grows back next year. So it's actually, it's a very sustainable harvest and product. Also, you can only use commercial cutters like the big guys that go across the cane fields on flat land. Haiti's really mountainous. Haiti's really rocky. So this is the way that works best for them to be able to get up on the slopes on this pretty, pretty drastic terrain. It's also a highly skilled labor. So they know exactly what they're doing. They're able to cut it on the right place. If there's immature cane, they can leave it for the next time they're out there cutting, and they can cut just the mature stalk. So the quality of cane that they get is very, very good. And then also it's typically carried by animal from the cane fields to the distillery. So the cane cutters cut the cane, they stack it into piles in the cane fields, and then it gets picked up typically by ox and cart like this, or by donkeys. Again, Haiti is very, very mountainous. So the donkeys are the best footed to get up these mountains into these cane fields and then walk back to the distillery with the cane harvested. If they have their uncle's truck one day, maybe they'll use that. It's not a kind of set in stone, like all Clairin is transported by the field to the distillery by animal. But typically it is, because that's what works best in these environments. If they have another solution, they'll use that. But this is kind of one of the last places in the world where you see cane being brought to the distillery. The mules like this are really fun to see, because typically they know their way without any lead. So you see the donkeys or the mules walking by themselves back and forth, which is super cool. When the cane gets back to the distillery, it gets crushed. The 4 producers that we work with all use diesel mills that are about like this. They're maybe 5-6 feet big. They're not very big. So the donkey brings it back to the distillery, gets put into a pile, and then all day long you've got guys staying there crushing the sugar cane by hand. So they're feeding it into these diesel mills that are spinning it. But if you go into the smaller villages, specifically up in the north, it's still very common to see these old wooden mills, which are just so cool. If you're in a village that doesn't have the ability to have a diesel mill running, then you can't press your cane and you can't drink Clairin. So a lot of these still have these old style of wooden mills where they have two cows like this that turn these long wooden branches, and it turns these rollers like this. So the guys will hand feed the sugarcane between these rollers. There's typically big gaps in the rollers, so they're always not the most efficient, but you get really good quality juice and you can make Clairin. So these have disappeared from the rest of the Caribbean, but it's still pretty common to see these, specifically up in the north, typically where they're also making a lot of sugar. You'll see these mills running as well. And then you get your juice. And really the juice from the different types of sugarcane is quite different when you taste it. The different types of sugarcane have their own flavor, have their own soil, really have their own terroir. So the fresh juice is spontaneously fermented. So they take their juice, they put it into drums or vats, they put it outside, and they let the natural yeast of the area do their thing. And when all my nerdy friends like you and me go there and say, you know, excuse me, Mr. Sajus, how long is your fermentation? He kind of looks at you like you're a bit crazy, because it's a different way of thinking. It's not a set fermentation time. This is a natural product. And so the fermentation is until it's ready in due course, right? If it's a very hot year or if it's a cooler season, the fermentation times are going to be different. So they distill or they ferment until it's done, until it's ready, until it stops bubbling. But it's an all wild fermentation, and the natural yeasts that grow in one village are very different from another village. And this is what's developing all of the flavor and the terroir of the village. It also kind of serves as the bottleneck for production. Some of the distilleries will have big wooden vats like this to ferment, but say typical fermentation is between 6 to 8 days, something like that. If you have one big vat like this, you can distill once every 6 to 8 days. If you have two of these, you can distill maybe twice a week. If you have 14 of these big vats, you can distill twice a day, but this is very expensive to do so. So a lot of the 500 little distilleries that dot all over Haiti will use smaller drums like this. These are 200 gallon drums that you see around a lot. So they're able to ferment smaller amounts, but they're able to have liquid that's ready to be distilled, that's finished the fermentation process almost every day. So they can distill less, but they can distill all the time, which means they can drink Clairin all the time. So it's pretty common to see the smaller gildeeves with their fermentation in plastic drums like this. But again, they put the juice into the drums, they let nature do its course, they let the natural yeasts of their area ferment and infuse into it, and so then they distill out of this. So you see they're kind of all at different stages of the fermentation. So one of the ways that the producers that we work with can up their supply as global demand for their liquid increases without changing their tradition is to have more fermentation vats. So this is at Michel Sajus. I took this last time I was there, so I'm sure these are up and running now. But Michel was building several more big fermentation vats so that he could ferment more liquid, so that he could distill multiple times a day. For this project, these bottles in particular, this majority of the liquid that they produce is still going to their village for local consumption. They're just setting aside a small amount for this project to export, so we get to enjoy it in our glasses. But one of the ways that they're able to produce more, so they're not disrupting their home market, and so that they have enough for all of us thirsty people now who love Clairin, is to have more fermentation vats.
Hey, Kate, are all the Clairin's wild yeast fermented?
All of the traditional Clairin are, which is what we're mostly concerned with. There are some distilleries that are In or near the city that have more, typically they have column stills, like coffee columns, like Barbancourt does, or Creole columns, like Rum Agricole does. Clairin is not Rum Agricole. It's incorrect to say that Clairin is Rum Agricole of Haiti. This is not true. Clairin is Clairin. Clairin is the name of the spirit. It is tied to the history and the traditions and the fermentation and distillation techniques associated with that spirit, which are very, very different than Rum Agricole coming from Martinique and Guadeloupe. So there are some distilleries that are kind of closer to the cities, and they have started to use baker's yeast or selected yeast and column stills, but I don't think any of that has hit the States yet. I know a little bit of it is bottled in Haiti, and this is sort of the difference between traditional Clairin like this, and then I'm not sure what the Haitians would call that style of Clairin. But Clairin means clear, clair, Clairin. It's the clear stuff, because rum is aged. Barbancourt is rum, right? Rum is aged for export. Clairin is clear. It's the stuff for the local consumption. It's the unaged liquid coming off of the stills in the villages. So for a Haitian, honestly, for a Haitian, if you're living in Port-au-Prince and you are Haitian with money, you wouldn't want anything to do with Clairin. Clairin is for the poor villagers. It's for the poor farmers. You want to disassociate yourself with that because you're a Haitian with money. A lot of the Haitians in the city will drink global brands to show their status. A lot of Haitians will drink Grey Goose and Johnny Walker and Chivas, and not Clairin, because Clairin comes in a plastic gallon jug like this, and it's a small village thing. It's not a thing of the world. So even for Haitians, like they're not really drinking a lot of rum, but they're very proud of Barbancourt, because Barbancourt being their biggest export. So they'll bring export. If you go to Haiti, you can find Barbancourt sold in suitcases like this, and everybody grabs a suitcase of Barbancourt to bring and share Haiti with their friends. So it's kind of a different mindset. And now that Clairin has sort of reached a different status where it's this unique, very special to Haiti thing, it's starting to grow in the country of Haiti as well. So it's starting to be bottled by the producers in Haiti, where this is the first time that Clairin has ever been in a bottle with a label on it. I know just last year, 2 other brands of Clairin hit the US, which I think is so exciting. With such a big dynamic category, it's really important to have a lot of voices in that category for the category to grow. So I love seeing other styles of Clairin. I haven't seen any Clairin that's made on Creole column stills with selected yeast. It's not what these producers do, so I'll let the producers that make that define what that is. But these guys define this as traditional Clairin, so that's what we use. Make sense?
It makes sense to me. So I'm going to say it makes sense to everyone.
Great. So, so you have your fermented wash, right? And your fermented wash is produced by the local sugar cane that's growing around your distillery, which is going to be different than your neighbors down the road because the sugar cane is different. The natural yeast in the air is different. So the flavor of your fermented wash is very regional and local to your distillery. And then you're going to distill that wash. And the type of stills that most of the producers have outside of those 4 or 5 guys with the Creole column stills in the city, or one example that we'll look at in a minute, most of the stills that the guys have look like this. And these are the very, very sophisticated stills of the mid-1900s in France. It's essentially an old cognac still. And so it has the chauffant, the preheater for the wash, this wooden vat here. And so the wash will go into here, and as the still is heating up, it'll heat up the wash for the next distillation. So it's a pretty efficient system for them. They're typically heated by direct fire like this. So they'll burn wood or bagasse. The wood is better to burn because it creates a more even burn. The bagasse is kind of like throwing newspaper into a fireplace. It's a really hot flash of burn, which can kind of scald your liquid a little bit. But you do have a lot of bagasse on hand after pressing all of that sugar cane. So bagasse being the hard fibers that are dried out, left after the sugar cane has all of its juices pressed out of it. So most of the stills are heated by fire of wood or bagasse, and most of them look like this. So you have your pot still encased in this little square of concrete. So that's inside there. Then you have a little column, typically like 5 to 7 plates, not so many. This is not a column still distillate. This is a discontinuous distillate or a batch distillation. So your liquid is going into your pot still, bumping over to your column, going up a couple of plates, which raises the ABV up quite a bit. And so it comes off of the still between 45 to 60%, something like that, depending on the strength of your wash, which depends on the seasonality and the strength of the bricks of your juice. So it's all completely connected, and then it comes off of the still depending on what happened around the distillery of that time, typically around 45 to 60%. And then they drink it. So it's distilled through one pass through the pot and the column in a batch distillation, and then it's drunk off of the still with no dilution. So in this spirit, they're not diluting the juice, they're not diluting the fermented wash, and they're not diluting the spirit after. So the liquid that's in these bottles has never had a drop of water added to it at any stage in production, which is super cool and pretty rare. So most of the stills around the country look like this. If you smell sugarcane boiling when you're driving through Haiti and you have the windows down, you can smell some sweetness in the air. Typically you can pull over, go between a little bit of sugarcane, and you'll find a small distillery like this producing Clairin for local consumption. You can trade them a couple of cigarettes for a little bottle and, you know, thank you. Some of it is pretty terrible. With 500 distilleries, there's the whole gamut of juice that's maybe not super delicious or could be a little dangerous, all the way up to just some of the most gorgeous spirits in the world. There's everything in between. And so it's really, really fun to try all of these different Clairin from all over the country. It comes off of the still clear, Clairin, like every other spirit, typically into a bucket. Just like this. So this is the blue one is, I believe, from Distillery Sanson, and the orange one is coming off of the still at Fritz Vivall's distillery. This is coming off of the still at Michel Sajus's distillery. Here's Michel Sajus. He locks up his vats of Clairin so that nobody comes and steals it at the night. This is him filling up my colleague Daniele Biondi's plastic water bottle. I think I still have this in a storage unit in New York, but I asked for some right off of the still so I could taste it in comparison with this. I should get that someday. So this is it coming right off of the still into Michel Sajus's distillery. And then you drink Clairin. And this is kind of the history of Clairin until the spirit of Haiti came on the scene and started bottling it and sharing it outside of the borders for the first time. So if you wanted to drink Clairin, you go to a table like this in the middle of the village, you buy a little bottle, you fill it up, or grab a jug, and you drink Clairin. And Clairin is so intertwined with this culture of Haiti. You really cannot separate Haiti from Clairin. I like to say that Haiti drips in art and Haiti drips in Clairin, and both of them are so tied into the culture that they really create all of what Haiti is and what Haiti means. So the Spirit of Haiti is a project that works with 4 different producers. The first one being Michel Sajus. And when I'm tasting, I'm not sure if any of you guys have liquid, but if you are tasting along, I like to taste them in this order. The ABVs tend to change, so I don't really see much sense in tasting it ABV wise. So whatever about that. But I like to taste it Sajus, Vivall, Casimir, and Lara Shea, which tends to, for me, kind of be the order of kind of the precise cleanness all the way to like the heavy, heady funkiness. So for me, that's the best tasting, but hey, you do you. There's 500 different Clairin. There's 500 different ways to taste it. So whatever makes you happy, I support. But
Maggie had to run, but she was starting some discussion around what team everyone was on, and she wanted to know what team you were on as far as your favorite.
I mean, that would be like having to choose between, right? Like,
I like the Voval personally. I know others were liking other things.
Yeah.
Saju, John likes Saju.
It's funny because, like, I don't know how many of us are on this chat, but if you were to take a room full of 90 people and ask them what your favorite was, or 80 people as it is now, and what your favorite was, it would be 2020, 2020. It's such an even split, and people who are drawn to one specific are like, that's my favorite, the other ones are cool, this one speaks to me. And everybody is like that, and it's usually completely even. Like if you have, we have 3 expressions in the market. If you have 9 people, it's going to be 3, 3, and 3, which I really think is really cool, because that means that there's something about these spirits that has something for everyone, and they're all different, and we're all different, and that's really cool and great. But I mean, if I had to choose one, I love Vivall too. I love them all, but Vivall kind of speaks to me.
All right, so you and I love Vivall, and I just saw that Missy and Joe love Vivall, so no one else can love Vivall because it's got to be an even split. We've had some people leave, so we're down to like 10 of us, 11 of us, so no one else can love it. Sorry.
As well.
Maggie was Saju, exactly. And I know, John, you said you were Saju, right? Yep, I see it right there in the chat.
Yeah, everyone's different. It's cool.
I haven't had the Casimir though, so, or I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Is the Casimir in the U.S.?
Casimir is coming back. So Casimir is on the same boat as Providence. So they'll both be back in the market, hopefully in August.
Oh man, we better start saving for August. We got to get Great House. We got to get all the Clairin.
August is gonna be a fun month.
Darren looks stressed about it.
It's okay. It's just rum. So Michelle Chazou. So
before you start back up, Zach wanted to know, do the communal or world champion bottles make it to the U.S.? Meaning, how do you select which ones are of the 500 distilleries? How did you select which 4 made it?
Good question. We'll get to that in a bit.
Okay, great.
So we only work with 4 distilleries as of now. Maybe the dream someday is to work with 20 distilleries. I don't know. Even to get the liquid from these very, very small villages to the fact that I get to have a bottle in my hand in Washington State, which is about as far as you can get in the continental US away from Haiti, is a lot of work and a long, long time. It took us years to figure it out. So we only work with 4 distilleries, and I'll tell you about those other bottlings in a minute. So Sajus. Michelle Sajus. So Clairin is the name of the spirit. This is the Clairin of Michelle Sajus. Sajus, not Saju, Sajus. So Michelle Sajus lives in the village of Saint Michel de Atalay. All of those late bottles that you pick up off the shelf, spin around, and understand nothing about the liquid inside. This is going to be the opposite of that. Like with most things that we do, there's more words and information on the label than you probably thought that you wanted to know, but that's our style. So Michelle Sajus lives in the village of Saint Michel de Atalay. the type of or the cane that grows there is called crystalline, and it's this really, really beautiful cane. So this is the distillery of Michel Sajus. You can see the pile where the donkeys brought from the cane fields over to the distillery. They put it into this pile, and then you can see the guys underneath the roof putting it right into the press. So the cane is pressed right away. If you don't press the cane right away, it's going to start fermenting on its own. Yeast is everywhere, and it wants to turn sugar into beautiful fermented material. And so they put it into this pile, they press it right away, otherwise it's going to start fermenting. I've been to distilleries before where you see batons of sugarcane, it starts turning like pink or brown or black on the edges, and this is bacterial fermentation already starting to work. So that's gonna probably produce some maybe not desirable flavors in your distillate. So here they're pressing it right away. This is Michel Sajus. I love Michel. He speaks very, very good English, and so I like talking to him because he's a wealth of information and a very good communicator at it. He absolutely loves Clairin, and he loves to share. He's standing in front of a pile of concrystalline, which is what this is made from, and that's his still on the right side. So they're all also vintage dated. So Clairin is a product that is in the market all the time, hopefully when the world allows, but they do change. And so what we brought into the US when we first launched was from 2016, then we had 2017, this is 2018. So if you see other years of Clairin in the market, grab it and share it. It's so much fun to do Clairin verticals because you really get to taste what was happening in Haiti during those times. Particularly the first distillate that we launched in the US was 2016. In Europe, it goes back to 2012. Which is when we started the Spirit of Haiti and started bringing bottles over to Europe. So 2012 in Europe, 2018 in the US, starting with the vintage of 2016. 2016 was the year that Hurricane Matthew railed through the Caribbean. And so in Haiti, the yeast got all mixed up in the air. The sugar cane had a very, very wet harvest compared to other years. And the bottles from 2016 particularly taste very, very different than the bottles before and the current bottles in the market. So it's really fun to taste them side by side. So they're all vintage dated like that right there. And then when you taste concrystalline, this really old, beautiful variety of cane, it really tastes like what's in here. There's such a direct connection between the cane and the liquid. It's just stunning. It tastes exactly what you think it would taste like in its distilled form. Michel tends to take his cuts a little bit higher, so his stuff tends to be a little bit higher in ABV. You almost always over 50, but usually like between 50 and 58%, because he's cutting a little bit high and a little bit close. The other guys tend to be a little bit lower in ABV. They're cutting a little bit later, so the ABV is going down over distillation. But this is a blend of a harvest season. So when Michel is distilling, he sets aside drums for the Spirit of Haiti that aren't going to the local market, but are going to the Spirit of Haiti. When they have enough drums, they fill up a truck. The truck then goes from the village of these guys down to our compound, for lack of a better word, in Port-au-Prince. The liquid is collected for the season, and then it's blended together and bottled as a seasonal harvest. So this is the harvest of 2018. So this is all of the juice that was collected over that harvest season. But if you were to taste Clairin off of Michel's still today and then taste it again tomorrow, there could even be slight differences day to day because this is a 100% natural product. So it's going to vary. I hope that tomorrow I'm a different person than I am today, right? I'm a natural living thing. This is a natural living thing. And so it gets to change and learn and grow every day, just like us. So that is Sajus, and the village of Sajus really looks like the label on the bottle. It's this green enclave, a bit of elevation, 800 to 1200 feet in elevation, and it's just full of sugarcane. This painting was done by an artist also named Michel. He's a pretty famous artist around Port-au-Prince, and this was one of his paintings that he did, and it really encapsulates the vibe of this area. It's just like a sea of sugarcane. It's like a green ocean. So beautiful. Down to the south coast, the Clairin of Fritz Vivall. I told you before that Vivall is the only producer in his area of Cavaillon. Cavaillon is a little market town. It's this village where two roads cross and there's a market on this village. It's a pretty small area, and everybody knows Fritz Vivall because he makes Clairin for the area. It's kind of a beachy vibe on the southern coast. You would fly into Port-au-Prince, drive down to Jacmel, and then over for a couple of hours, depending on the situation of the roads, to arrive to Cavaillon. Just a beautiful area. This is the distillery of Fritz Voval. The type of sugar cane that grows here is called Madame Meuse. It's a very yellow sugar cane. It's a little bit bigger than the cane of Saint-Just, than the crystalline. Crystalline is maybe like this. Madame Meuse is a bit bigger like this. It's like the fanciest name for sugarcane ever, Madame Meuse. And Fritz's distillation is a little bit different than the other guys. This is Fritz Vivall, super nice guy. When we first arrived to these distilleries and said, this is incredible, you know, my Italian boss, this is the best in the world, this, you know, this crystalline, this Madame Meuse, what you're doing, this still, we have to bottle it, we have to share it. If any of you have ever seen or met Luca, you know his passion is overwhelming. And so we said, okay, well, we'll put it in a bottle and we'll call it Clairin. Clairin, what's the name of your distillery? And there was no name for the distilleries. It was, okay, you're Fritz Vivall, we'll call it Clairin Vivall. And then Vivall started thinking maybe he should name his distillery. So he ended up naming the distillery Distillery Arawak, after the first people of this region. In Haiti, you know, sugarcane was planted there. The local people first were used as a workforce. There's very few of the indigenous Caribbeans left, the Arawaks, the Taínos. I've heard that there's a couple little communities in Dominica, but otherwise they've basically been wiped out from the Caribbean. So this is in tribute to the first people of this area. When the colonialists destroyed the first workforce, they had to import another workforce, which is where humans in Africa were enslaved and brought over. So Arawaks is the tribute to the first people who lived in the south of Haiti in this region. So he named his distillery after them. And so now he has a brand like this that he sells locally, Clairin Arawak, which I love. So this is the Clairin of Fritz Vivall. I think that this is the first ever advertisement for a Clairin with a name on it in the history of Clairin, which is so cool. But if you look at his still, it looks very, very different than the other stills that we were looking at before. I think it kind of looks like R2-D2 a little bit. It's this kind of big dome structure. And when Luca arrived, he said, Fritz, you know, what's your still? And he said, what do you mean? He said, well, everybody else's still looks more or less the same. Where did you buy your still? And Fritz said, I didn't buy it, I made it. So this is Fritz's homemade still. It acts more or less like the other ones. So this is the pot still that you see here. You see the small column behind it, but he created it himself. And all of the other stills in the island that we've seen are powered by direct fire, like we saw before, where you're feeding it wood or bagasse. This one is powered by steam. So this is the only steam powered still that I've ever seen in Haiti, and maybe the only one in the world that's like this. So you see here a different angle of the still, and you see that there's some pipes that run off and then kind of jet across. And that pipe is connected to the engine of a steam trains. So he took a train, the steam engine of a locomotive, he popped the wheels off and he parked the train next to his still. So this is a locomotive engine that he feeds only with bagasse. So you see all the bagasse in the pile in front of here. So he creates steam in the steam engine of the train. It's then piped over to his still here, and his still is powered by a train, by the steam engine of a train. Super cool. He's basically my hero and MacGyver of rum. So the bagasse again burns really, really hot, so it's perfect for steam production for Clairin. So this is a steam engine powered Clairin in the village of Saint-Michel or Cabillon. And when you taste this one, like Sajus for me is really like green and grassy and precise and straight, and maybe like the more familiar in style to like a rum agricole. It's very like grassy and botanical and delicate and beautiful. Vivall is more of the seaside. It's salty, it's minerally, it's kind of like wet slate. I grew up in Maine and it tastes like home for me. It's that like sea salty air and wet rock and coastal vibe that I crave and love so much. I think that's why I tend to gravitate towards this one. But totally different and very much of their place. Voval or Sajus is up in the mountains in this very green botanical environment. Vivall is just 2 kilometers off of the southern coast. So it tastes of its place of where it comes from. Casimir, which we don't have in the market right now, and I don't have a bottle to play with in my hands. Casimir isn't too far from Vivall. It's just on the north side of the southern fork. It's in a village called Baradar. And Baradar is a fishing village on the northern fork coast. But it's very difficult to get there. There's no real roads that go into Baradar. It looks pretty close. If you were to drive from Vivall to Casimir, it's maybe, I don't know, like 15 kilometer, like it's not very far, but it would take you hours because you have to drive up a mountain range and back down. This is the village of Baradar. It's absolutely beautiful. The population here is quite big because it's so remote and isolated that there's quite a few people who live in this area. So they have a lot of Clairin distilleries. I think there's 15 or 20. The one that's kind of thought of as the premier distillery was started by Duncan Casimir, who's Faubert Casimir's father, and he was known to be the best distiller in this area. So this is Faubert Casimir with his daughter and brother. I love the eyes of the baby. They like look into your soul. And this is his distillery. So an absolutely just beautiful, idyllic place, much smaller than the others. 2 buildings like this. So the cane is brought to these piles that you see in the foreground and then crushed and distilled here. The type of cane that grows here is called Avai. It's written like Hawaii, but they say Avai. You see Casimir on the left there with 2 different stalks of Avai. There's 2 types that grow in his region. There's Avai Rouge, which is the kind of darker, shorter stalk, and Avai Blanc, which is the longer, lighter colored. So 2 different types of Avai. And there's research that's been done that points to the Avai being related to the Otahiti cane. The Otahiti cane was one of the first Polynesian canes coming over to the west coast. So I haven't traced the route of how it got to Haiti, but this is most likely a direct relative of the Otahiti, which is a very old sugar cane coming over to Haiti as Avai. So 2 different types here. His still is more or less like the other ones where you have the wooden chauffe au vent, the small pot still, and the short column here. His fermentation though is very different. The style of his village here is to add lemongrass, to add sour orange or lime juice to the wash. So he takes the juice and he puts it into these big wooden vats, and then he picks limes or citron vert, he picks sour oranges, and they squeeze it into the wash. And this acts as a natural acidifier. So where modern distilleries are adding euphoria or chemical acidifiers to the wash, he's adding natural ones, and this allows him to prolong his fermentation. So he has a very, very long fermentation that develops lots and lots of flavor. Casimir is very like rich and savory. It's kind of mushroomy. It's like forest floor, fermenting passion fruit. It's a really, really intense spirit. And that's because he's able to produce this very long fermentation, which builds lots and lots of flavor. The kind of strips on the top are lemongrass. And I actually asked Maggie what's up with the lemongrass. And she told me that a lot of local distilleries will use lemongrass because it's a big deterrent for insects and for certain types of bacteria that might get into your wash and turn your spirit. A lot of kind of like the old style to prevent this is to use lemongrass because it has certain components that keep certain bacteria that you may not desire away, and also keep certain bugs out of the distillery. So super cool. So they have a kind of a different style, and you see here this like really intense fermentation cap. You can, you know, stick your arm down. It's like this deep in his big wooden barrels. And so this creation of intense flavor makes Clairin Casimir be very, very intense, super kind of funky and rich and savory, really, really interesting spirit. The label art on this one is done by Michel as well, the same guy who did Sajus. So he did these two. Vival's art label was done by a taxi driver, I believe. Luca doesn't have a driver's license. He's never had one. The only place that he drives is in Haiti. But he was in Italy, and he was in a taxi, and the taxi driver was Haitian and showed him a painting that someone that he knew did. And Luca said, it's beautiful, and it's perfect to capture the soul of Voval. So this one, Luca made the connection in a taxi, which is very Luca. Sajus and Casimir were both painted by the artist Michel.
That's the coolest. That's the coolest. I mean, they're all cool stories, but that's a cool story.
Yeah, I love that. It's so Luca too. So Sajus being very like grassy green botanical, kind of straight and pointed. Voval being a little bit more rounded, a little bit more coastal, seaside, almost salty. Casimir being like overripe tropical fruit, soil, mushroom, really savory. And then Lara Shea is completely different than all of that. With 500 different distilleries, again, you have such a wide variety of diversity of every component to creating this liquid possible. So Lara Shea is a bit of a different story altogether. All of the other distilleries didn't have names for their distillery. Sajus named his distillery Cello. Voval named his Arawaks. Casimir didn't name his, so his is still Casimir. Lara Shea had a name. It's owned by a gentleman named Romulus Bethel, and Romulus Bethel is the brother of a priest, and so he named his distillery Lara Shea after the Bible parable of the wise man and the fool. The fool built his house on the sand. The wise man built his house on the rock, Lara Shea, the rock. So he's a very religious man. The label is a painting that's actually hanging in the Hotel Florita, which is this beautiful hotel in Jacmel from the early 1800s. It has 4 rooms, I think, old stone hotel. It's absolutely beautiful. We have our Clairin World Championship competition there every year that we're able to. Really beautiful, and the hotel is basically an art museum. It's just filled with art. It's so incredible. Jacmel is such a vibrant art community. And so the label on this is kind of like a Last Supper kind of vibe, kind of in ode to Romulus Bethel and his beliefs. And when you go to visit Romulus, you go into his home, you wash your hands, you sit down, you have a meal with him, and then you go to visit the distillery. So I love the label of this because it's very experiential with the distillery. So Lara Shea is a different sort of distillery. It's in an area of Haiti called Pignon. And we talked about before how you have to cut the cane and bring it straight to the distillery to be juiced and then distilled, because the natural yeast is going to do it anyway. In Pignon, there's no sugar cane, or not enough sugar cane that's growing locally to distill. And so it's impossible to go 30 miles away, cut sugar cane, bring it to Pignon, juice it and ferment it. It's not possible to do this because the juice would start fermenting already. So in Pignon, he buys syrup. So this syrup is produced in Michel de Attelay, or in Saint Michel de Attelay, where sa juice is located. He buys syrup from there. It gets trucked down to Pignon. And then he rehydrates the syrup to the correct Brix level for the natural yeast in the air to do its thing, and goes about his merry way distilling. So it's pretty common in Haiti for producers to use juice or syrup. A lot of times in the dry season, the distillers will cut the sugar cane, juice it, ferment it, distill it, and drink Clairin. In the wet season, the sugar cane will swell, and the Brix level of the sugar cane will get too low for the natural yeast to ferment it. And so if you cut the cane in the wet season, the juice is diluted in the sugar cane, it's swollen. And so you put it outside and nothing happens. So in the wet season, often they will boil their cane juice down into a syrup, and it kind of like cans it for winter. It saves it, makes it more shelf stable, and then they'll rehydrate it as needed and go about their way, because if you can't have the fermented juice, then you can't produce Clairin, and then you can't drink Clairin, and this is a big problem, being completely interwoven into the culture of Haiti. And so if you're in an area that doesn't have sugarcane growing nearby, you're probably going to use syrup, or in the wet season, you're probably going to use syrup. We sort of have this Western mentality that, you know, this product is made from this one thing and it always has to be made from that, and it has to be the same on the shelf every time. And this is a very different mindset than local spirits, which are used for local production, and you're going to make it the way that you're able to make it in the period given, right? So a lot of spirits are using syrup as well, blended different times, only syrup. This is Romulus Bethel here. This near your cat on. The syrup is produced in a battery like this. So you have a heat source on one side of the battery, and you're spooning the sugarcane juice closer and closer to the heat source, and it's getting richer and richer and more concentrated and more concentrated. If you were to keep going and you were to keep boiling it, it eventually will get to be a consistency kind of like Parmesan cheese. You can see in the very, very top picture of, or top right of this, sorry, top left of this photo, these kind of tube shapes like this that kind of look like giant cigarettes. Those are palm leaf tubes that if you let the syrup keep going until it gets really, really thick, they'll fill these palm leaf tubes with this sort of Parmesan paste, and it'll dry and cool and cure, and this becomes sugar. This is called rapadou, which is the traditional Haitian sugar. They'll slice up the tubes and bring it to the market, and you can buy a chunk of rapadou sugar from the market like this, and it's the best sugar in the world. And so if they cut this production about halfway, you still have the syrup, which is easy to transport. It's not going to start fermenting because the Brix are too concentrated for the natural yeast. You can rehydrate it, and then you can produce your Clairin. The other thing that makes Lara Shea completely different is that they're taking the syrup like this. He's about to put it into these big blending stations like this, these big kind of built-in blending vats. Then they'll dilute it, and then they'll also blend it with Dunder. If you guys love Jamaican rum, you probably have heard the word Dunder before. Dunder is what's left in your pot still after distillation. So you have your pot still like this, you put in your wash, it starts heating up. Your most volatile molecules are going to come over first. Your heads, your methanol, your most volatile stuff, then are going to start coming over the things that need more heat to vaporize. kind of the good stuff or your hearts, then as your pot still gets hotter and hotter, more energy, the molecules that need more energy are then going to start coming over. And then you're kind of going to hit a point where it's not really economically feasible to keep heating up your still, and the stuff coming off doesn't taste good anymore. So you're going to come into your tails, your really, really heavy alcohols, really heavy molecules, and then you're going to cut it and we're going to be good. So most places would then take all of the stuff left in the pot still after that, because there's going to be even heavier stuff that's going to take way too much energy to ever try to vaporize and come over on your still. The really, really heavy stuff, the heavy alcohols, the dead yeast cells, the material left in your still after distillation is over. Some distilleries just get rid of it. Some distilleries use it as fertilizer. In the Trelawney region of Jamaica, they put it into their fermenting wash because it's very, very high in acid. So it's customary of Hampden Estate and Long Pond to put it into their fermenting wash, which develops really, really funky big rums. We know that when you're blending acid with alcohol, it's producing esters. And so Hampden Estate is kind of the George Clinton, the Pete Funk of high funky rum, of high ester rum. And in the 1800s, the British that owned Jamaica at that time were making incredible amounts of wealth off of their super high funky rums. Jamaica was pumping out an incredible amount of rum, and it became the most sought after rum in the world for the blenders, because kind of like if you're making a cocktail, if you put some pretty light bodied, more neutral spirit in there, and then you put a little like ½ ounce of rum fire in the glass, it's gonna taste like rum fire, right? So if you're making a blend, you could buy some kind of more affordable, lighter bodied stuff. You could put in a little bit of this super big rock and roll Trelawney high ester rum, and your rum is going to taste probably pretty complex and very good. So it's a very important blending tool through the ages. In the late 1700s, the French essentially got jealous and wanted a piece of that action. And so they invited some Jamaican distillers to come over to Haiti to teach Clairin producers how to make high ester rum so that they could get in on the extreme wealth that the British were making. They also, you see this in Martinique, you see Grand Rhum, and this is the same sort of thing. They're trying to make very big, bold, high ester rum there as well. They're not using Dunder. That's pretty specific to this region. So the, here's my map. So the French, or the Jamaicans came over here. You see Jamaica up in the top left corner. They came over, they landed in kind of north central Haiti. They started teaching producers in this region how to use Dunder in their fermentation to produce big funky rums. And then they declared independence in 1804. They killed all the French. I don't know if the Jamaicans stuck around, maybe they went back to Jamaica, but in this pocket of Haiti, you still see this evidence of a point in time where Jamaicans came to Haiti to teach them how to make big, funky Jamaican style rum. So Lara Shea is an example of that. So it's kind of this like historical place and time where the British were making so much money and the French had Jamaicans come over to teach them how to use Dunder in their fermentation. So Lara Shea is a totally different story than the other guys because it's using syrup and it's also using Jamaican style fermentation. And when you taste it, it absolutely makes sense. It's so big and rich and almost like smoky. It tastes like kind of salty. Somebody told me once that it tastes like barbecue potato chips because it's like rich and fatty and smoky and salty. But I think that's dipped in a little bit of caramel or butterscotch because it has this like sweetness on the finish and all this like body and complexity to it. So it's totally different than the other 3 that we work with, totally different than the other 500 that are in the country. So huge diversity between these 4 distilleries. And this distillery looks more like a Jamaican distillery. I don't know if Christelle showed you pictures of Hampton Estate, but it looks totally different than the other distilleries. It looks more like a Jamaican distillery than it does like the other Clairin producers. Questions so far?
Yeah, Kate, I have one. What was the goal when you all were looking at all the different distilleries to pick 4 clearly distinct different Clairins? Or did that just happen to be the case because they're all so different that no matter what you picked, it would kind of have been that way? Or was that a strategy on your part?
I can't speak for Luca and what he was thinking in 2012. I know that he fell in love with Haiti in a real big way. For the first couple of years of this project, he was in Haiti more than he was in Italy. He and my colleague Daniele Biondi went to Haiti for the first time because everybody said, don't go to Haiti. Haiti is poor, Haiti is dangerous. You don't want to go there. So of course he wanted to go there. And he found just, the most beautiful country with the most beautiful people, with the most beautiful communities, and with the most beautiful spirit that he'd ever seen. He drove around and I think they probably tasted like 200 of the 500 distilleries. They tasted every distillery that they could. The 4 producers that we ended up partnering with were of a size that they could produce enough to start this project. It wouldn't make sense to start exporting if you could get like a drum a year. So one sort of factor was the size of the distillery. They could produce enough. I mean, these distilleries aren't big, but they're not, the tiny little, very, very small Gildeves that were like the size of this room that are producing very small amounts. The other major thing was a willingness. They wanted to work with them. Haiti has a really brutal and tumultuous past, and for white people to show up at your distillery and say, this is so important what you're doing, let's celebrate that and let's start this project together. A lot of Haitians would maybe say, absolutely not, like, no. A lot of the older generation of Haitians are quite afraid. The white people that they typically see are missionaries or military, so it makes total sense. So these guys also had an open mind to see Luca's vision and give him a chance to share that vision with them and say, why don't we create a marketplace for this spirit that you guys produce, because it's really special and it's really important, and we're going to bottle it with you as the forefront of it, right? Because it would have been much easier for Velier to say, this is Velier Clairin, but that's not who we are. This is the Clairin of Lara Shea. This is the Clairin of Michel Sojus. It belongs to them. They're partners in this company, and their spirit lives in this range that is shared with the respect to them, their cultures, their traditions, and them as individuals. And so kind of those 2 factors, where the distillery was big enough to actually have a meaningful project, and the people that owned the distilleries were interested in starting a project with this crazy Italian man who showed up wide-eyed that they couldn't believe how incredible the spirit is. So those 2 factors were the main driving factor, but it was a very, very slow start. The first drums, Luca literally took the first drum of Casimir, tossed it in the back of his Jeep, drove from Baradar back to Port-au-Prince, put it on a boat and sent it over to Italy, bottled it in Italy, had like 200 bottles, and that was the first release of Clairin ever. And so to come this way, where now we have a steady supply, we have a bottling facility that can handle it, we have more of a cohesive partnership with getting the liquid and the logistics. But sometimes there's trouble in Haiti. There were some riots over the price of oil and fuel last year, and so the port was closed and the customs office was closed, and we always stand with the Haitians, right? I mean, we run out of Clairin, but Haiti is standing up for what they believe in, and they're protesting for their country, and we always stand with them. And sorry guys, there's no Clairin right now. Haiti is, we stand with the Haitians through this, and when they get through this and when the ports reopen, yes, that container will get on the ship and come over and we'll have Clairin again, but you know, that's the least of our concern right now. Our concern is always with our Haitian partners. So speaking of our Haitian partners, in the middle is Luca Gargano. To his right is Thierry Benatar. He's my French boss who owns La Maison de Whiskey. So the Spirit of Haiti was created with investment from Velier, investment from La Maison de Whiskey, and then a partnership with the gentleman in yellow, who is Bertie Lenguet, and then Michel Sajus has the hat on in the middle. So this is a picture with the very, very early times of the Spirit of Haiti when it was first created as a partnership between La Maison de Whiskey, Velier, the Lenguet family, so now La Maison and Velier and the Lenguet family, to share the liquids of Michel Sajus, Fritz Voval, Faubert Casimir, and Romulus Bethel. In the very background behind Michel Sajus there, you can see Bertie Lenguet's son Herbert, and Herbert now manages all of the Spirit of Haiti, and he's also the distiller of Providence. So this is the original Barbancourt family. This is the first time they're coming back to distillation. So they're, you know, partners in our company and partners in other companies and other projects. And it's a huge, incredible future that we're creating with them to showcase how special Haiti is. This is a very early picture of Luca with Michel in the shades, Fritz Voval in the pink shirt, and Faubert Casimir. Lara Shea was the fourth producer to be added, so he came along a little bit later. So the 4 bottlings that we have, and then we also release, somebody asked about Clairin Communal earlier. So Clairin Communal is a blend of the 4 producers. So we only work with 4 producers. Communal is not another Clairin, but it's a blend of the 4 producers to have a pretty consistent available product that isn't going to change with the seasons or with the vintages. It's in a lighter bottle and it doesn't come in a box like the other ones. And so this one is price pointed a little bit more for like a mixology Clairin. So it's going to be more consistent in flavor. It's going to be a little bit more affordable than these guys. I think they're very affordable, but you know, it's not always the greatest price point for a bar to be mixing with. And then it's brought down to 43% versus these guys, which tend to jump all over the map a little bit depending on the season and the harvest. So it's a more consistent available product. It'll be coming to the US in 2021, so hopefully around January. I really wanted to have all 4 producers in the market for like a solid year because it's been so kind of in and out of production. I wanted people to understand how special the producers are before we introduce something different on top of that already. But with everything that's happening globally, we'll get Casimir back in August, and then hopefully we'll get Communal in January. So that will be like the more consistent mixing Clairin. We'll also have a Communal Ancien. Ancien means aged. So there'll be a unaged and an aged Communal that will hit maybe at the same time, maybe a little bit different. We'll see how it goes. So this is the warehouse of the Spirit of Haiti. This is where the magic happens. You can see in those doors, those kind of silver blending vats. So those are the vats that all of the vats get blended into to make the harvest season. So all of the liquid is collected in this building. The building is made from local trees, locally sourced rocks, all local materials, really to be part of the environment here. And then inside are all of our barrels. So essentially whenever Velier empties a barrel, it gets put on a boat and shipped over to Haiti to be filled with Clairin. So there's Carigny casks, there's Benriac casks, there's Vivall casks, there's all sorts of really interesting casks. And they're all sort of experimental at this point. Clairin coming off of a still between 45 and 60%, something like that, can even be a bit too low to put into a cask, but it is very hot in Haiti, so you have an accelerated maturation as well. So it's kind of just see what happens. There isn't much history of aging Clairin. So this is the first time Clairin has really been aged. And we're lucky to have such a plethora of really high quality casks that we empty for other projects. So we send most everything to Haiti kind of to see what happens when you age Clairin. There's a product being released in Europe, I'm not sure if it'll come to the US, called Vieux Sajus or Old Sajus. And this is because when a Clairin gets very old and it becomes more about the cask than about the raw material of the cane and the fermentation, we've believed and decided that it's no longer Clairin. So Vieux Sajus is rum. Because it's about the cask and the aging and the maturation and not about the raw material and the vibrancy of the fermentation and cane juice. So there's kind of other things that are happening in this warehouse as well, which is super exciting. Whenever we have people come down to Haiti with us, since we've had casks, we invite them to go through and taste them and make selections. So I don't know if you guys have seen in Europe, there's a lot of Clairin Ancien that has hit the market in the last couple of years. There's 3 that just hit the market in the US this year, with 3 of our friends that we invited down to Haiti 2 years ago. So they finally are available. There's 1 in New York and 2 in California. No, sorry, 2 in New York and 1 in California. And they look like this. I also have 3 that I selected that are coming to on the same boat as that Casimir and the Providence. And there's a Sajus Voval and Casimir that are aged in Oloroso sherry casks. So we have those to look forward to, which are so delicious. And then a couple of our partners around also have one. Our friends in Florida selected a cask. I jokingly refer to my 3 Florida boyfriends, Will Thompson down in Miami, TJ in Gainsborough, and then Rob Crabtree over in St. Augustine as the Florida Rum Triangle, because they make a triangle with their 3 bars. So they all tasted a set and selected one, but they're kind enough to share. So they'll be available for retail as well, which is super cool. So there'll be a Florida Rum Triangle bottling coming probably around October, if all goes well. So we have that to look forward to in Florida, just for Florida market too, which is super exciting. But yeah, these are kind of experimental projects. I kind of get a whole bunch of little sample bottles and then we get to taste them. So there'll be more fun stuff to look forward to as well. And then somebody asked about the championship bottling, and that was kind of before we had the Ancien. That also was and before Communal. So the championship bottling was in tribute to Clairin World Championship, where we did a blend of the distilleries and released it in a special edition bottle kind of every year that listed everybody who participated in Clairin World Championship. Now they get to pick a cask and put their name on it. So kind of the evolving of the company. So that's kind of what we do. You know, I feel so proud, and I feel such a sense of responsibility to share this spirit that has such deep roots in someone else's culture that I'm not a part of. I'm a white girl from Maine. But it's a huge responsibility to share the liquid of Michel Sajus, because I know Michel Sajus and I want to do him proud. And so there's also some risks that come with sharing his spirit with the world. And some of those risks are that, you know, the government might say, oh, this is something that we can make money on, and why don't we start the first TTB Haiti, and for every gallon that you 500 producers produce, you have to pay us $1 to fund this TTB Haiti and govern you, and this would wipe out 95% of the distilleries. Only those 5 big distilleries near the cities would really be left. Or maybe they'll say, for your safety, you can't use the natural wild yeast in the area. You have to use selected yeast, and you have to buy it from us, of course. And this would also wipe out. When you go to Haiti, when I go to Haiti, I feel poor. I feel that the Haitians are so rich because they have such incredible diversity and biodiversity left in their world. They have such a strong culture that it's really just inspiring, but they don't have dollars in their pockets. A lot of the small producers don't have dollars to pay for a TTB or pay for selected yeast. A lot of Haitian culture is still in the barter system where, Missy makes Clairin and Zach makes shoes, and you guys trade and figure it out, and the villages take care of each other. So it's a different mindset. So they don't have the dollars in their pockets to fund a TTB or to fund or buying selected yeast. So this would wipe out the huge diversity of this incredible spirit. So it's impossible to make sort of a GI in Haiti. The government is a total mess. It wouldn't work at this period, maybe someday in the future. But what we were able to do was bring slow food to Haiti. And so Clairin, traditional Clairin, is a presidium of slow food. I don't know if you guys are familiar with slow food. It's kind of a bigger deal outside of the US than in the US. But they're an organization that protects and celebrates with protocols the kind of pre-development of specific cultural food references. So be it a type of chili pepper in Mexico or a style of producing pasta in Italy, to say this is important, we need to protect this and save this for future generations, if it's a seed or a skill. So traditional Clairin was proclaimed a presidium of slow food in 2018. Michel Sajous is the head of Slow Food Haiti. And basically it says that traditional Clairin respects all of the things that we just talked about, from agriculture to harvest, raw material, fermentation, distillation, final product. It has to be bottled in Haiti. It can't have any dilution. It's bottled at still strength, so that when, and it will happen, somebody, some big company goes to Haiti and puts in a big multi-column still and calls it Clairin, you guys all know what traditional Clairin is, and you can say, no, that is not Clairin. This is real Clairin. This is about the producer. It's about the raw material. It's about the fermentation. It's about the biodiversity that is so rich in Haiti, that we should protect, but more that we should celebrate. So that's Clairin. And I know that was way more than an hour. Ooh, 2 hours. Are you guys all still with me? Are you all still awake? Are you happy?
Well, it's very good.
We listen to you all day, Kate. It's very.
Thanks, Missy. Do you guys have any questions?
I had one for you about the aged Clairin.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that one in the stores here. You said, is that one coming? We tasted 2 at Rum Congress. So
yeah, I brought to Rum Congress some that was kicking in my personal collection that I just wanted to share because I knew that it would be coming. What's available in the market now is just in New York and California. So it was just, we invited Gino Pellerin, who works with our California distributor Winebow, to Haiti, and Jesse Vita, who was in charge of Blacktail at the time, and Ivy Mix from Leyenda. So they all came to Haiti with us, as well as Sarah Morrissey, who won our competition. So 3 casks, because Jesse and Ivy decided to share a cask, who knows, came to the US a couple of months ago in late February. So maybe there might be some shops in New York that still have a couple bottles kicking around. The California was a Lara Shea. The New York was a Vivall and a Casimir. On the boat with the Casimir, with the Providence, is also 3 casks for New York and 3 casks that are the Oloroso casks. And those Oloroso casks, because sherry butts are so big, they're like 600 bottles per cask, and I have 3 of them. I really wanted something that I could have a limited amount because it's just a single cask, but it's a much bigger single cask, so I can share it with more people. So those will be available nationally. So if you guys want some in Florida, there'll be some available for you. And then being bottled next in line will be that Florida Rum Triangle bottle, as well as a couple bottles for specific accounts around If, next someday the Florida Rum Society wanted to have a private bottle, we could totally talk about that. I have casks available and I love sharing them. They're 200 bottles, so there's not a ton of the liquid, but they're really kind of fun experiments, and they're all different and have really unique identities. So they're really cool.
Awesome. I know this group would be way into that. We've got John, we've got Brock.
Yeah, I know you guys. I love the Florida Rum Society too, because you guys have like bartenders, you have retailers, you have enthusiasts who are educated and smart like you. You have people just dipping in, and everybody like shows up. It's such a cool mix of people. I'm really a big fan of you guys. I think it's really great.
Where they get it, you Kate, you know that.
Nice. Cool. What else we got? Any other questions? Thoughts? Feelings? I hope you guys all want to drink and try some Clairin, because it's really cool. Oh, this is my friend. I wore this shirt because it's my Haiti shirt. If you go to kaitita.org, my friend here in Washington is this really incredible Haitian American named David Pierre-Louis. And David started this company called Kaitita. And basically he has a documentary, which you should go online and look at, because it's really incredible. But after the earthquake, he owned a little jazz club up in Seattle. I knew him before. He was good friends with my best friend, the one I was just in South Africa with. But David couldn't get hold of his mom after the earthquake in Haiti, and called and couldn't get a hold. So he jumped on a plane and he went to go see if his mom was okay. And on the plane, he met this documentary film guy who was going down there just to figure out what was going on. And he asked if he could follow David around. So there's all of this footage of David getting there, finding out that his mother was still alive and okay, and like they're reuniting. It's total like tearjerker. And then David also kind of jumping into like the aid of it, bringing all of this medical gear, helping people, real footage of what was going on through the lens of David. And instead of rebuilding his mother's house, they decided to make it like a community center, kind of almost like WeWork style. So a place where they could have, business supplies from like computers and printers and, the materials to run a business, to classes, to how to start a business, how to do your taxes, just like a resource center to bring up the community. So instead of rebuilding his mom's house as a home, they're rebuilding it as Kaitita. Tita is his mom, so the house of his mother, as this organization to really like make positive change in his local community in Haiti. And he's just like the coolest, most inspiring guy. So go watch his documentary too, because it's really great. I've been a big fan of his before I started working with these guys, and I just have such a love affair with the country of Haiti and all of the resilience of the people and the dynamic nature of the diaspora. I love it when Haitians come and say, Clairin, but this isn't Clairin, where's this from? Well, it's from Haiti. No, because Clairin comes in a jug. That's not Clairin. Where is this made? No, it's made in Somersault de Atelier. Vivall is my favorite because it's made in Cavaillon. In Cavaillon, no, there's only one distiller in Cavaillon. Yeah, no, Fritz Vivall. Yeah, but my parents are friends with Fritz Vivall. Yeah, this is Fritz Vivall. I've been in so many people's selfies, like with this, that they've then texted to Fritz Vivall saying, Fritz, I'm in Chicago and I'm with this girl and she has your distillate and how. And Fritz is like, say hi to Kate. Like, it's so cool. But I love sharing the community and the culture of Haiti with the diaspora of Haitians, because everybody knows each other. It's a very small world. It's a very small country, and it's really cool and it's really special, and it's so real. Like, that just doesn't happen anywhere else, where somebody walks up to your table and say, Fritz. Yeah, Fritz. You know Fritz? And it's happened like many times. It's very cool. Sorry, other tangent, but yeah. Anyway, Kaitita, watch this documentary. It's very cool.
Yeah, very cool. Hearing about Haiti. I mean, I know as Americans, it's not necessarily necessarily an advertised destination for us, right? Like,
No.
you hear about DR all the time, but you don't hear about Haiti other than the tragedies there.
Totally. Which is so unfair. Like,
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of talking about Clairin for a couple of years now, and it's happened several times where someone has come up to me after and just say, hey, like, I'm Haitian. All I ever hear about Haiti is like the tragedy. Thank you so much for saying that my country's beautiful. Like, you don't hear that very often, and I just want to thank you. And like, it's just so like reeling for me. Like, could you imagine being from a place where, well, I guess we're living that reality right now. But being from a place where all people say are very like tragedy oriented, disaster oriented, really negative things about the place that you're from, and that's what you hear over and over and over, and that's not true at all. So guys, go to Haiti, go experience it for yourself, because it's really special. It's really, really cool. So cool. Well, thank you for all of your 2 hours and 15 minutes of your time. I so appreciate it. I wish I could be there with you guys in person drinking Clairin. But when it's safe to travel again, I can't wait to come back to Florida and hang out and have drinks with you guys and drink all of Joe and Missy's rum off their back bar.
Why we have it? It's to drink, right? Not to look at.
Y'all been to Joe and Missy's place? It's great. I mean, you can see it in her background, but it's so nice. I love the community that we have, like I really think that the rum community is so special, and it's so true that like you can go anywhere in the world and have instant friends. It's really like a cool, special thing. So I'm really happy that you guys are all part of that community, and that, it's very cool. It's not like that everywhere. So we're all very lucky.
We absolutely are. It's our rum fam. We love them.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you, Kate. I know Jay had to drop, but on behalf of all of our Florida Rum Society people, thank you so much for all of your time and your education today. It was great as always, and we look forward to seeing you again in person very soon.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm just gonna type my email in here. If you guys ever need anything, look me up. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. That's my email. Here's my Insta handle. DM me, email me. I'm very available to talk rum because I love doing it. So cool.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
See you, everyone.